They popped my hood and found gravy on the dipstick. Yes.
They're the ones who own it.
Welcome to the December 28th, 2014 edition of the Beatdown Report. I am your host, as always. My name is The Clute. And welcome to our final show of 2014. What would have been our last live show, except we had some technical difficulties in that our executive producer took down our listening room page, and that our producer was passed out when we got here to the studio. And I think that encapsulates 2014 to a T for me. 2014 was an interesting year. 2014 was a year of a lot of preparation, and then things sort of go according to plan, and then they just spin off out of control like a satellite into the deep of space. Like a $2 billion communication satellite that was going to revolutionize the way that you thought about texting. And then the rocket misfired and then shot it into the sun. Let me explain what I mean by that. Let me give you the perfect example. So this year, I did dive with the great white sharks of Isla Guadalupe, the island off of Mexico. So I had planned it. We had purchased... Me and my friend had purchased our tickets to board the expedition back in December, and then we both needed to get recertified for scuba because neither of us had scuba dove in a long time. So we got through all that. We bought our equipment anew. We get to the boat, and then we told there's a hurricane that's right offshore that's churning the seas into a cataclysmic foam. So we get to the island, and we get diving, and we managed to see a couple sharks, but whereas most people would see 11 to 13 sharks during their trip, we saw 2. And so that was a little disappointing. But, I can say I'm one of the few people on this planet who can say that they have dove with the great white sharks of Isla Guadalupe. And I actually got the shark tattooed on my left arm. You can't see right now in the studio because I'm wearing a very long sweater because it is very cold. My executive producer, Jen LeBuzz, is rolling her eyes at my concept of very cold because she came back from Reno, Tahoe, someplace not Arizona. She decided that apparently she was too good for Arizona for Christmas and decided to leave to apparently Tahoe, California, where I'm sure she hobnobbed with celebrities and, the people who are she doesn't hang around with the little people anymore. Yeah, she did actually hang out with the littlest people, the children. She believes the children are the future. The bleak, depressing future. An empty void. But no. So this 2014 has been a weird year, I think, for everyone. I think there's been so much stuff that's happened, and there's no resolution to it. Perfect example, the disappearance of Malaysia Air Flight 370, which we covered. You can catch that show on our Podbean account if you want to remember it. But what happened basically was this jetliner full of, I think, 200 and some people disappeared. And it hasn't been found. It's either somewhere at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean or Indian Ocean, or someone hijacked it and it's currently in a mountainous airfield somewhere in Pakistan or Afghanistan, or it disappeared and, as they said of Flight 19 in the Bermuda Triangle, flew off to Mars. No resolution on that story. The Ukraine, which we covered this year. No resolution on it. It's still very much a jump ball. Right now, if you've been watching, if you're an American and you're listening to the show, you know what's going on with the gas prices. Gas prices are plummeting. The gas station by my house in Phoenix, Arizona at 16th Street and Thomas. Gas is $1.93 a gallon. When was the last time gas was $1.93 a gallon? I mean, I think you would have to go back into the early 2000s, late 1990s to see it that low. No? Longer than 10 years, though. Definitely longer than 10 years.
5 years, maybe.
I think it's longer than that. Jen is saying 5 years. What do you think, Johnny? How long has it been?
No, I just remember going shopping once when it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Here in Arizona?
New York.
Okay. Well, New York benefits from all the mafia-priced gasoline. So, the Barack Obama, everyone that said, oh, Barack Obama is it's a lame duck. He's finished. He's not going to be able to do any more of his agenda because he lost the November elections, and he is kicking everyone's ass right now. He pushed through executive amnesty. He pushed through the deal with Cuba. I know there's some other things that he's been doing too. I know he got a deal on some of the confirmation of judges that he wanted. He got his Surgeon General choice pushed through. So again, everyone assumed that everything was done. The Republicans were taking over, and again, it's a jump ball. So 2014 was a year of no resolution for anything. Down in Australia, everyone thought that the shark cull was over, the Western Australia shark cull. We did 2 shows on that this year. And it stopped for a while, and now they're doing it again. There was this sad case of around Christmas Day of a young man getting eaten, presumably, well, not eaten, but attacked and killed by a great white. And now Western Australia is again targeting great whites that they think may have been responsible. Go listen to those shows. There's no way that you can tell when a shark is responsible unless you see it at that time and can kill it at that time. And even then, it's a pointless endeavor. Sharks are not like tigers. Sharks are not like lions. They don't develop a taste for human flesh or the ease of the kill of a human. Sharks are very, stimulus response animals. I can say that with certainty because you know what? I've dove with great white sharks this year. What did you do this year? What did you do that was big and bad? I'm sure you did something because you're all interesting people. Let us know in the comments. What did you do this year that you were most proud of, that you've never done before, that is worthy of song, that is worthy of a tattoo, like I've gotten tattooed. By the way, my tattoo, let me throw out a free plug here. Urban Art Tattoo number 3 in Tempe, Arizona. Ask for Nicole Marie McCord. She does excellent work. And I'm looking forward to getting more tattoos as I celebrate more life events. All right. So, what do I want to talk about this? Because this is our last show. This is our last free form. Because again, it's the end of the year. As my friend Holly Samuelsek says, the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve is the taint of the year. There's not much going on. Government's pretty much shut down. TV networks are running reruns. No one's making any news. It's kind of like doing a show this time of year. We either have to have something spectacular, like we have the biggest news breaking story that none of the media is handling, or we can do a show like this, which is what we're going to do. I want to talk about Todd Starnes. Todd Starnes, to me, now I'm gonna give you a little background on Mr. Todd Starnes. He is a Fox News contributor. He regularly appears on such television series as Fox and Friends and Hannity. So he is from the South, and he is a white Southerner. He is a white male Southerner. He is a white male. He is basically a caricature. Like if you went to Central Casting and you looked at it and you said, "Hey, I want to give me a fat Southern sheriff," as Jen, PR person Jen LeBuzz has mentioned, "Hey, give me Boss Hogg." We're going to try to find his laugh at some point during the show. He is a living caricature. Listen to his biography. This is coming to us Wikipedia, so obviously treat this with a grain of salt. I might get something wrong. But he grew up in southeastern Louisiana. He attended Georgia State University and/or Lee University. And he did some reporting for the local Atlanta legal newspaper. He then started working for the Chattanooga Times Free Press, the Blue Ridge News Observer, and the Baptist Press, followed by a stint as the communications director for Union University in Jackson, Tennessee. I mean, you can't. I mean, he literally has worked in almost every state of the Confederacy. It seems like, except for Texas and the Carolinas and Florida. In 2009, listen to the title of his book that he released. This is the title. They popped my hood and found gravy on the dipstick. That's the title of his book. Now that's right there, my friends, is poetry. And then it talks about how he lost a significant amount of weight because he had open heart surgery. He's one of those people who treads the line as to whether or not, if you agree with him, he's not racist. If you don't agree with him, there are times that he definitely stretches the line over what's acceptable in modern public discourse. I have a tendency to be on the latter side of things because he is... One thing I've noticed lately, and this is coming after the Ferguson decision and the Eric Garner decision and the assassination of the two police officers in New York, and I don't want to make this a throwaway show about that because those are larger issues, and we've talked about Ferguson in one of the last shows. We also talked about it in our Kevin Sorbo show, which you can listen to, which is on YouTube and on Podbean. But when he speaks to the vast majority of older white Southerners and Westerners, I would say people who are living right now in Montana and the Dakotas and stuff like that, who look at the future of America and are frightened, not because it represents anything bad. Well, I would say that we would say that it doesn't represent anything bad, but to them it represents change, that they are no longer going to be at the top of the heap in 20 years when it comes to demographics and when it comes to representation. And they look at that and they see nothing but doom for themselves because they have been brought up, they have been taught that they, as the white man, and lesser so the white woman, that they are the pinnacle of what civilization should be. And that's a very common American conceit. I would say it's a very common Western conceit. You look at Britain, you look at France, you look at the Netherlands. I would say right now you see these right-wing parties who are coming up in power. In Britain, it's the UKIP. But they look at the future and they're like, well, we are what civilization is, and we're being taken over by minorities, whether they be of African descent or they follow the Muslim religion, or whether they be of Latin American descent here in America. And so Todd Starnes speaks to a small amount, but he speaks very loudly, so he gets a lot more. He gets a bigger slice of pie than he deserves when it comes to media attention. Let's play a clip. And this comes from Fox News's panel they had a couple months ago on weed legalization. I'm going to play a clip here, and I want you to just listen. This is Todd Starnes coming up.
Starnes, Todd, you come at this from a moral perspective. You write a lot about moral issues. Morally, do you see this as part of America in decline?
Oh, I think absolutely that's the case. What we have here is a case of money over morality. And, right now it's really funny. Folks, we're watching the chuckleheads, we're watching these folks doing what they're doing out there and getting a good laugh about it. But when the body count starts rising, when people start dying, then maybe, yeah, it's real funny, isn't it? Real funny to talk about. But this is a classic example. This is a classic example, Sean, of people just not giving a damn anymore.
Okay, so he was talking about weed, and again, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what things are. There's a debate I have with some people sometimes about the morality of drinking alcohol, and I got to say, I enjoy alcohol. For Christmas, I got from my dear friend Lauren Perry. I received a bottle of rum Barbancourt, which is a Haitian rum that is aged. She got me the Estate Reserve, which is aged 15 years. And it is quite frankly one of the best rums on the planet. Last night, I was out at drinking with friends at a club, and I enjoyed 2 Jack Daniels. And I would have the effects, both the flavor of Jack Daniels, which is a sublime whiskey. Whiskey has its own flavor. It really can't be described as anything else. Maybe like an oaky, fiery sensation. I think maybe you could describe it as. But I enjoy the intoxicating effects where you have that nice numbness and pleasantness, and also the physiological effects. I was able to stand outside in freezing cold weather wearing nothing but a very light shirt, and I didn't feel it. Because why? Because I had the power of Jack Daniels coursing through my blood. And that right there, those three things right there, yes, anything can be abused. As Todd Starnes so eloquently wrote, they popped his hood and found gravy on his dipstick. And Todd was basically eating himself to death. He had to have open heart surgery because he had clogged his body with country fried gravy. And literally, I mean, he always talks about how he misses biscuits and gravy and chicken fried steak and all this other stuff. The Southern palate, the Southern diet is awful, and when it comes to health. So, he was abusing himself with food. There's no biblical prohibition. I mean, you could make a case that gluttony is one of the 7 deadly sins, and I'm sure there's Bible verses that say don't eat to excess. But he himself would have violated that principle. And there is it's probably in Leviticus. I don't know. I'm not going to waste time looking it up. But I know there's people who have said there are biblical prohibitions against drinking alcohol. And of course, people would counter that with, well, in the New Testament, Jesus himself turned water into wine. And if you look at the history of the ancient world, people drank wine in place of water because water would kill you because of polluted wells. So people drank wine because it was refreshing, and it was also safer than drinking water because it had alcohol in it, which would kill bacteria. So Todd is taking that biblical prohibition against what he sees as a biblical prohibition against alcohol, and he's applying it to weed. And he sees people smoking pot as the moral decay of America. Well, the problem is that marijuana is not a symptom of the moral decay of America. I guarantee you, if you're listening to the show, either you or someone very close to you smokes pot. And it is not by itself any problem. If you get drunk, if you get high, it's the exact same thing. And is it a gateway drug? Is pot a gateway drug? No. Pot is not a gateway drug any more than drinking is a gateway drug. Do other pot users use other drugs? Possibly. Not necessarily. Some people will never move beyond pot. Some people don't like pot. I will say right now, folks, I'm not gonna break any state secrets here by saying I have smoked pot. I don't care for pot. I think I've tried it like 3 or 4 times in my entire life, and I either get super paranoid, or I get super cotton-mouthed, or I get I'm not going to list the third effect because this is a family-friendly show, but I don't particularly care for it. And oh my goodness, I like this. We have the blues riff right through my show. Let me turn that off. I'm not sure why. Apparently, when you smoke pot or you talk about smoking pot, a jazz musician just starts playing in the middle of your show. So yeah, thank you, unnamed blues musician. But pot. Todd Starnes sees pot in the same vein as he sees alcohol, that it's a moral sin, and it's not. It just you can't convince me of it otherwise. But again, a lot of older white people see that as such. The people who live in their gated communities and they live in the retirement homes and all that, and these are the people who vote all the time. Look at November 4th or 6th of this year when the elections were. Why did the Republicans win the elections? Because young people stayed home. Old people did not. Old people tend to be more conservative because they're at the twilight of their years and they are afraid of change, disrupting what little time they have left on this earth. When you have maybe 10 years left on this planet, you kind of want a smooth transition into death. You don't want to have to deal with a revolution, be it a mild one like the sexual revolution in the 1960s, or a major one like the French Revolution where people started cutting off people's heads. But yeah, so he represents a time in America that is passing. And nothing could exemplify that more was when Todd Starnes this year had a Christmas special on Fox News on Christmas Eve. And they say he is, and I you know, I hate I hate to impugn anyone's motives for a Christmas special, but dear God, this thing was just like, if you took Branson, Missouri, and if you don't know what Branson, Missouri is, if you're listening to this from another country, or if you're listening to it from a part of the United States, that's just frankly not Branson hip, if you will. Branson is where pop culture goes to die. It's like the elephant's graveyard of pop culture in America. Right now, one of the biggest draws in Branson, Missouri is Yakov Smirnoff. Now, if you don't know who Yakov Smirnoff is, it's because you're probably you're probably younger than 30 years old. Yakov Smirnoff was a comedian in the 1980s who was a Russian emigre. He escaped from Soviet Russia, and he was a comedian. And he was funny back in the 80s. You know, when for the moment that he was around, he was funny because he created a joke which people have entitled the Russian reversal, and I'll give you a Russian reversal joke. In America, you watch TV. In Soviet Union, TV watches you. That's Yakov Smirnoff. He created that joke structure basically, and up until communism fell, he was it. He was on TV. He got invited to the White House for the Correspondents' Dinner, or by the White House for the Correspondents' Dinner, and then the Soviet Union collapsed, and communism collapsed. I mean, you have its holdouts in North Korea and China and Cuba, but his raison d'etre is over. And there was a comedian back in the 60s. I want to say his name was Mueller or something like that, and he did a spot-on impersonation of Kennedy. He did all these Kennedy jokes, John F. Kennedy jokes, and then Kennedy was assassinated. And his whole career went into the toilet. And so the famous comedian Lenny Bruce is credited with making the first jokes about the Kennedy assassination after it happened. It was Von Meter was his name, Von Meter. And so Lenny Bruce, about 2 weeks after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, he has a show. He walks up to the microphone, and his first words are, "Man, Von Meter is fucked." And that's kind of what happened to Yakov Smirnoff. So in Branson, Missouri, though, old people just like take over his theater. He has his own theater in Branson, Missouri, and you can go to yakov.com. That's YAKOV.com. And his show is packed. He has got. I'm looking at the calendar for the remainder of the year. He looks like he's taking the break for Christmas, and good on him because he's a busy man. But you can have dinner with Yakov. He had for November 23 shows, almost daily. Think about that. He can pack a theater 23 times a month. You can't do that. I can't do that. But this is Todd Starnes America. This is who is driving the country right now. Young people didn't elect Mitch McConnell back into the majority leader of the Senate. Young people didn't elect what's his name, Doug Ducey in Arizona as governor. Old people did. And if you don't understand older people, you are, and also if you're listening to this, you are going to become an older person. It's going to happen. Jen is shaking her head, but it will happen. You will eventually transition to the role of an older person. Now, whether or not that you are afraid of change as an older person is not yet to be decided, or is yet to be decided. You just gotta, but that's not what's happening. These people are terrified of change, and they're elevating people like Todd Starnes into the popular culture. And so this Christmas special of Todd Starnes was basically a Branson review. They were singing songs like "The Boogie Woogie Christmas Boy," Yeah, Peter Pan. We'll talk about that in a second. But just like the entertainment that no one. If you're a young person and you're watching it, you've been dragged there by your parents and you're hating them the entire time, and you pray to God that they let you keep your cell phone so you can at least text to your friends while you're being forced to endure this awful, awful Christmas special. And I only bring this up because it just represents a segment of American culture that does not speak to me. Probably does not speak to you. If you're listening to the Beatdown Report, you probably could give. If Branson, Missouri was wiped off the face of the map by an errant meteor that, crashed into the planet, you probably would not shed a tear. You might shed a tear for the people, but you wouldn't necessarily care that the idea of Branson is gone. And who speaks to that as part of that to that audience? No better than Sarah Palin. Now, Sarah Palin was involved in the show, and you could make as many jokes about this as possible. I mean, there are literally 1,000 jokes that you could make about Sarah Palin at any one moment, and they'll probably all land. You could do a dirty joke. You could do a haiku. You could do a limerick. You could tell a tale. But Sarah Palin literally phoned it in. She made an appearance on the Todd Starnes Christmas special via telephone. Now think about that. That's like, imagine if you had It's a Wonderful Life, the classic movie starring Jimmy Stewart, and the Mr. Potter character was only seen by telephone. Like you didn't see his face, you just heard his voice, disembodied voice, telling George Bailey that he's calling the sheriff. It's like, well, George, I'm going to call the sheriff on you, and they're going to beat you to death in front of Mary and the kids. And what are you going to do about it? Jump off a bridge? But yeah, so Sarah Palin phoned it in, as she has phoned in her entire political career. But one thing that she mentioned on the show, on the Todd Starnes Christmas special, was her chili recipe. Now, folks, I have an amazing chili recipe. It has literally won contests. In fact, my chili pot that I make, it's a giant stainless steel Emerald Lagras chili pot, which is just amazing. And I won it at a chili contest because my chili was so good. But I don't have a recipe for it. I can't tell you how to make it. Because why? Because it changes all the time with the ingredients that I have. It generally involves a pork shank and some beef, like sirloin, that I chop up into nice little cubes. And I'll put some, what do you call it? Cumin and coriander and chili powder and cocoa powder. Cocoa powder is a secret recipe. But I can't tell you the proportions, and I can't tell you exactly how I make it because the recipe is just not it's a work in progress. Something always changes. But Sarah Palin can tell you what's in her chili recipe. And let's want to break down how terrible this chili recipe is. Now, she calls it her Christmas chili. Ha. Because why? It's made with 1 pound of moose hamburger or caribou or beef. Because moose is not an easy ingredient to obtain if you live in the lower 48. But so 1 pound moose hamburger. 1 package chili seasoning mix. This is okay. Let me state this right here. This is bullshit. If your chili recipe includes a pre-packaged and prepared chili seasoning, you're not cooking. It's not a recipe. You're assembling things. You basically are making an assembly line food. What's the second ingredient? 1 package of hot chili seasoning mix. Either your chili's hot or it's not, and you're mixing spices that have. I mean, this encapsulates what's wrong with Sarah Palin. 2 16-ounce cans of tomato sauce. And that's fine. I use tomato sauce in my thing too. 8 16-ounce cans of kidney beans. A chili is supposed to have more meat than beans, if you put beans in it at all. I do put beans in mine because I use a recipe that is kind of cribbed off of a man named Joe who worked at the Greens Pharmacy lunch counter in Palm Beach, Florida. And he put beans in his, so I put beans in mine. But she's putting in 8 16-ounce cans of kidney beans. That's 8 pounds of kidney beans. versus 1 pound of meat. This is just an abortion of a chili. I got to tell you, people, as a chili aficionado, as someone who loves chili, this is awful. You could put moose. I mean, if you want to do that, you put up chopped moose or ground moose, but you put more. Why am I so upset about this? Why are you freaking out about a chili mix? Because again, it represents everything that's wrong with America. It's prepackaged. It's wrong in its construct. It's phoned in. And it's presented during a prepackaged Christmas special that no one in their right mind would watch if they are not being forced to. So yeah, that's basically how I spent my Christmas Eve. I watched the Todd Starnes Christmas special, so you don't have to. And there were other things in it. You know, it's the typical gospel America. Christmas, Jesus is the reason for the season. Yes, Christmas is technically a religious holiday, which is brought on the backs of a pagan holiday, which, quite frankly, Saturnalia was probably a lot more fun than Christmas. All right, let's take a break. And let's promote something. Let's promote me. Me for a change. Not someone else's book. Not Trolls. Not The Healer's Legacy. Not Phoenix Fan Fest. Let's promote The Clute. I will be appearing on March 12th at Sugar House Coffee in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is located at 1100 East, 2011 South, for the Sugar House Poetry Slam Team Selection Finals. I will be featuring there, where I'll be doing a 20-minute to 30-minute set of poetry, and I'll also be teaching a workshop before the show. If you need more information, call 801-883-8867. That's Sugar House Coffee, and they can give you the full schedule of when the show starts. I believe, though, it's at 7. The workshop starts at 6 p.m., and the slam starts at 7 p.m. So be there or be square. All right. So let's talk about predictions. Let's talk about what I see happening in the upcoming year. Well, let's talk about things that I know are going to be happening. I personally will be covering the Arizona Board of Education and the rule of Diane Douglas on that, and we are definitely going to be focusing on that quite a bit, because I think it's a very important situation where it could affect not only the education of kids in Arizona but across the United States. As we mentioned in the show, Diane Douglas and the Dumbing Down of America, which is available on YouTube, that I believe that Diane Douglas will not be able to do anything about repealing Common Core, and she will actually be focusing on other social issues, which I think she could take all the way to the Supreme Court, which I believe she will attempt to insert intelligent design, or as it's being called these days, sudden emergence, into Arizona state curriculum, which, if it goes to the Supreme Court, could overturn the decision Kitzmiller v. Dober, which ruled that intelligent design was not science and thus not eligible to be taught in America's public schools. I see, at least for the next year, an anti-science backlash. And you can see that a lot in the way that the conservative Twitter sphere is responding to Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astronomer out of Chicago's Hayden Planetarium and host of the excellent Cosmos show that was on this year on Fox. He tweeted on Christmas Day a very funny tweet, I thought, which was basically, on this day, a child was born who would forever change the world. His name was Isaac Newton. And, it's funny. It's kind of a dick move because, yes, everyone's on Christmas Day is celebrating the birth of Jesus. But at the same time, Newton was one of the most transforming figures of world history. Newtonian physics rules the roost. To understand modern physics, to understand, traveling to other worlds, to understand building a rocket, you have to understand Newton. And so without Newton, you could say, okay, well, there was Leibniz, and Leibniz also created calculus, but you know what, and physics. But you know what? Newton is the one who did it. Newton is the one who was able to publicize it. Newton got it out there, accepted into what was then modern society. Now we call it the Enlightenment. So, it's Neil deGrasse Tyson being funny. But man, did conservatives hate him for it. You should have seen, you can find the tweet on Neil deGrasse Tyson's, he's at Neil Tyson on Twitter. Find the tweet and then just read through the comments, read through the responses to it. And there are people who just hate the guy. And, you could say people hate him on the right because he's smug. And he's a little smug. But you need a little smug. When you got the swagger of science on your side, when you can bring intelligence to the masses like he did on Cosmos, the people who depend on people being dumb, and that I would say is the American conservative noise machine, it's a definite threat. But it also, I think it hurts, at least for them, not for anyone who's an intelligent person, but the fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson is black, I'm sure bothers a significant proportion of people on the right to no end. But yeah, so I see an anti-science backlash coming because I think, again, older people don't want to. Common Core is another example. Older people on the right see Common Core as a change to the way that they did things. They didn't buy these fluorescent light bulbs when they were young. They learned math the old-fashioned way. They didn't learn it through Common Core. Everything that's changing, whether it's light bulbs, whether it's how we view science, whether it's how we learn math, is a change to what they have done over the years, and that is unacceptable. If it was good enough for them, it's good enough for you. But the problem is, things that were good enough 50 years ago aren't good enough now. No one would say, hey, you know what? Look, don't treat me with modern medicine. I want to be treated how they treated people 50 years ago. No one would say, that airplane you got there. No. I don't want to get there in 3 hours aboard a jetliner. Put me on a prop plane that has to make 10 stops along the way, including in Iceland. Because, damn it, I want to take 24 hours getting to my destination on a small, uncomfortable, cramped tube. That's one thing if there's a takeaway from today's show, if there's a takeaway from 2014, is that we get better with each passing year. We stumble, we fall, we look at what happened in Ferguson. We look at what happened with Eric Garner. We look at what happened with Tamir Rice. And these are setbacks. These are the way things used to be 50 years ago, 60 years ago. So we have to fight to keep the gains that we have achieved, but we also have to fight to move forward. Because people will always try to take us back because it was always good enough in the past. And science is what's making life better. Would there have been the outrage over Eric Garner had we not seen the camera phone video of him being choked to death by the New York Police Department? We probably wouldn't have known about it. I think a vast majority of people would have said, hey, this guy was resisting arrest, shit happens. But when you can see a man who has his hands up be dragged to the ground and choked to death, and you can hear him say, I can't breathe, it's science that made that camera phone happen. It's not, God bless him, it's not the Bible. It's not the goodwill toward men. It's cold, hard science that said, hey, let's put a goddamn camera in our new phones. And we will get better. We will get better as a society. We will get better as people, but we have to move forward, and science is the way. But, like I said, people don't want to move forward. Speaking of moving forward, speaking of progress, speaking of change, Barack Obama. What's going to happen in the next 2 years? Because remember, he's got 2015, and pretty much, and I got to give you a clue here, folks. What's going to happen? 2015 is the last year that anything is going to get done until 2017. Because what's going to happen is Congress and the president are going to fight and work and hopefully achieve some stuff together up until about November of 2015. And come November of 2015, it's going to be the Thanksgiving holiday, so the Congress is going to be a bunch of lazy asses and not want to get anything done. But that also begins the campaign for 2016 is going to begin in the middle of the summer. Candidates are going to start going to Iowa. Hillary's going to declare. Shit's going to happen in the middle of the year that's going to drive the political agenda. But come 2015, November, everything grinds to a halt because what happens is the campaign happens. And the Republicans who are now in power are not going to want to push anything that is going to drive people away from them. But they're also not going to let Barack Obama try to push his agenda, which would help Hillary. So what you're going to see in the next 10 months is you're going to see the Republicans try to take the president on over immigration and his executive amnesty. They will lose. The Dreamers will be able to get their driver's license. They will be able to stay in this country. Those governed under the president's plan will be able to stay here, and they will be able to work for the American dream that they have come here to achieve. But it's going to be contentious and it's going to hurt the Republican Party because the only way that they will be able to effectively present their message to the people who are afraid of change, to the Todd Starnes Christmas special watching public, is by demonizing Latinos. So you're going to hear every story over the next 10 months over Latinos, how a drunk man plowed into a car full of teenagers, how a Latino man kidnapped a child, how some guy was shot by a Latino man or a woman. And they're not going to tell you that this also happens with American citizens. They're not going to tell you about all the car accidents that happen with white Americans, with citizens, because that doesn't fit the narrative. So look out for your friends if they happen to be Latino, and they won't make a determined differentiation between legal and illegal immigrants, between citizens and non-citizens of Latino descent. They will attack those who are Latino. And so look out for your Latino friends over the next 10 months really up until 2017, because they are going to be made into a scapegoat. What else I see happening in government? I think Arizona is going to be a really interesting test bed for what happens with the rest of the country. And why? Because at this point, you have a vocal Democratic liberal minority in this country. And Arizona has a very vocal, loud Democratic liberal minority in the state. And as the conservatives try to push their agenda in Arizona, you're going to see a significant amount of pushback. And Arizona is not Nebraska. Arizona is not the breadbasket, Bible Belt, flyover, whatever you want to call that part of the country. Arizona is a very eclectic state that gets a lot of public focus because of people who try to drive the agenda and because of our where we are. We're not quite California. We're not quite Colorado. The Super Bowl is coming here next year. We've got major universities. We've got people, activists. We are on the forefront of the immigration fight. And as conservatives try to push their agenda, we will push back, and we will be able to see exactly how badly the conservative agenda will fail. And I don't say that as a progressive, liberal-minded person. I can say that with certainty based upon Arizona's economy versus the rest of the country. Keep in mind, right now, the Obama economy is pretty goddamn awesome. He's cut the amount of unemployed in 5 years in half. He has his policies have helped double the stock market. Again, he's not personally doubling the stock market. He's not personally cutting the unemployment rate. But his policies, which everyone said would kill the country, are not doing so. And in fact, they're helping it. If you like $1.93 gas right now, like we're having in Phoenix, remember, conservatives said we were going to be at $10 a gallon gas by this time, $8 a gallon gas. That hasn't fucking happened. We have not seen wholesale unemployment. The amount of uninsured has gone down. The amount of people receiving health care. And as people receive health care, they will be less of a drag on the economy. That is all going to happen in 2015. And the Republicans are basically going to try to fuck that up. But when they fuck it up now, they're the ones who own it. They're the one. Before, they could always, even though they were the ones doing the damage, with some help from the Democratic Party on occasion, because the Democratic Party, folds like a bad souffle when it receives just the slightest amount of pushback, or collapses. I think not folds. Collapses like a bad souffle. That's a better use of that metaphor. But they are the ones who have been, while Obama's been pushing the gas, they are the ones who have been pushing the brake. And now that they are the public face of this country, because they are now in charge of most of the state houses in the country, they are in charge of the Senate, and they are in charge of the House and the Supreme Court. When things go bad, they're going to have to put a spin on it. And they're not going to be able to. We're going to be able to say, why aren't you pushing any job creation bills? Why aren't you pushing any environmental protections so people don't get sick from drinking their well water next to a fracked well? Stuff like that. And they are not going to have a good answer. And they're going to have to go on the attack. And they're going to have to attack people who can't fight back. And that will be, as I mentioned previously, Latinos in this country who are fighting to become citizens. What else do I see? Entertainment-wise, I am so looking forward to next year. I mean, so many movies I want to see. Jurassic World, Avengers 2. What else? Someone's doing... Oh, yeah, Star Wars. Doe. Thank you, Star Wars. Looking forward to that. I am looking forward to it so much that we have a local theater chain here in Arizona called Harkins. I think they're only in Arizona. I think they have like maybe one or two outside of the state. But every year they produce a cup that you can buy that you fill it up. You buy it for like $5, and then you can fill it up for the rest of the year for $1. And you can also get the T-shirt, which if you get a T-shirt and you wear it to the theater, you get a free medium popcorn. And I got this Christmas pack, which was basically the T-shirt and the cup and a free popcorn and a free movie ticket for $25. So next year I'm going to see so many movies, and we're going to have, as part of the show next year, I'm going to do a 5-minute movie review every show for an upcoming movie or a movie that you may not seen yet. We're going to try to get I haven't mentioned this yet. Actually, my staff is probably just hearing this now for the first time, but I'm going to try to get us some pre-screening tickets so we can go to the movies and do like a movie show. I'm going to have to talk to our executive producer about that, because he knows how to contact the press agency. Jen is hopefully tweeting him right now or messaging him right now. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about movies a lot. I know, and I want to say this to the people of Australia. I love Australia. I love your country. You buy many of the books. Apparently, according to Bob, outside of the United States, Australia is the second largest purchaser of books under the Brick Cave Media imprint. I have to tell you, Australia, I'm still going to be talking about you, because you're still talking about this bullcrap shark call. And if I haven't nailed it down yet, if you haven't understood, stop killing sharks. You just got to do that. We're also going to be talking. We're going to be doing some live shows from Comic-Con. We're going to be doing some live shows, some special event shows in Arizona, which we hope you'll come out to, because if you missed the O'Kelly's election night spectacular, you missed a great show. And we really, I think we have a great chance. This is going to be our last show. Actually, I think we've already achieved that. We've crossed that Rubicon. We are no longer going to be doing our shows on Podbean. They're going to be on YouTube exclusively. And we will promote the hell out of those through our social media pages. And we hope that you will come along with us for the ride. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this year. 2014. It has been an honor and a privilege to do as many shows as we have. I want to thank you. If you have listened to this show from its inception to where it is right now, I thank you so much. It has been fun. And I think 2015 is going to be as much fun. Because now that we're pre-recording shows, we can be a lot more proactive on doing stuff. I don't know. It's just been a great year. I want to thank everyone who's been involved in the show. I want to thank my producer, loyal producer, who gets this shit done all the time. Whether it's a remote setup or whether it's local, he makes it happen. Johnny Skinner. I want to thank Jen, our PR person, who has done so much work, including getting us the venue for the O'Kelly's Pub for the election night special and doing all the social media stuff. We're going to work even harder on doing that to get the message out. I want to thank our executive producer, Bob Nelson, who has kept us going, who really has made this happen. Hopefully we'll be able to convince him to let it go through 2015. Our technical, outside technical stuff, I want to thank Podbean for hosting us for the duration of the year. Thank you very much for Podbean. I want to thank YouTube, our new hosters, for providing a service that is, frankly, we're not paying anything for, right? Right, it's free, and we're making money off it. We've made like $2, I think, off the B-Town Report in just the last month alone. That $2 paid for my Ruby Red Squirt today. That's 2 soda refills at the Harkins movie theater. I want to thank Ustream for when we did do the live streaming. I want to thank our guests this year that we had on. We had Michael Weiser, we had Bill Campana a couple times. Thank you, gentlemen. And that's it. Raymond Scott for our theme song, although he was dead in the 30s. But hey, Raymond Scott, wherever you are, thank you. This has been the Beatdown Report. This has been 2014. Check out our shows. We will see you next year.